Welcome to Sewing Anastasia, and today we're gonna take this 80s sweater, which has amazing detail on it, and turn it into a super cute dress with a hot pink satin bottom to it. Can you envision it? I know I can. We all know I love thrifting, and I love finding something super fun and unique. So I see this sweater, and I'm thinking to myself, I'm not gonna wear it ugly, but these details up here. I love all the appliques with the sequins and the beading and the rhinestones. This would take me forever to do by hand. So I have the sweater here, and we are gonna turn it into something super cute and use these super fun details. So the magic of thrifting is saving something and seeing the beauty in something that's ugly. So follow along, and I'm gonna show you exactly how to turn a crazy 80s sweater into a super cute modern dress. So if you're not already a subscriber to Sewing Anastasia, make sure you subscribe and hit that notification bell because I put new videos out every single week, and they are all about sewing and upcycling and making patterns. So cool. And if you're already a subscriber, thank you so much for following along. Also, I teach sewing classes in my design studio here in Chicago. So if you want to check out all those classes, make sure you go to sewinganastasia.com and click on Sewing Classes. Supplies for this project are as follows. We're going to need some scissors. You're also going to need matching thread for your fabric for the skirt and your fabric for the sweater. You're going to need your pins. You're also going to need some chalk and some elastic for the waist of our dress. You're also going to need a sweater and some fabric that you want to add to the sweater for the skirt. I've got a giant roll of hot pink satin, so we are going to be cutting from this. And here it is. You can definitely see that we need to tailor this up to make it a nice fitted bodice, and we are gonna get rid of everything past the waist so we can add that hot pink satin. Dying to add it. And we are gonna get rid of these sleeves right below the appliques here. So we're gonna show off some arm, and we're gonna take it in. So we're gonna get rid of all this extra fabric. This right here is like, I don't know, 8 inches of fabric. So we're gonna be taking this in like 16 inches, so that way we can get a nice fitted bodice. And I'm going to be leaving the neckline and all of this beautiful detail. So I put my sweater on the dress form inside out. The dress form is my size. So if you don't have a dress form, no worries. Go ahead and put the sweater on yourself inside out, so that way we can do the pinning till we know how much to take in the sweater. But the first thing I'm gonna do is remove these shoulder pads. They are just connected with 2 little secure back stitches here, tacking. So we are going to just clip these right off, and then so easy. Look at that. They just pop right off with 1 little snip. So let's just give it a little clip, and there we go. No more shoulder pads. So easy. So the first thing you want to do is put some pins down center front, because when we're pulling this to take it in, we don't want to pull it uneven and pull off our center front grain line with this. So even though it's a knit and it's a sweater, there's still a grain line. So make sure you pin your sweater through your dress form at center front. And if you're pinning this on yourself, you could always make sure you have a tank top on underneath, and go ahead and pin it through the tank top and make sure it stays center while you're pinning the sides. And now that we're done with that, we're gonna move on to pinning the sides of the sweater so we can figure out exactly how much we need to take it in. So grab your pins and let's take the sweater in. So when I do this, I like to take the fabric, I drape it up to the side, pull it out, make sure it's even. We have a lot of fabric here, so very carefully, I have to almost like gather it up so I can get to the side seam on the dress form. Take your pin and put it in and then out. And now these pins are going to be the sewing line for our new side seam. And just work your way up and down the dress form with the sweater. So maybe you want your waistline to be lower, maybe you want it to be higher, maybe you want it to be empire, maybe you want it to be baby doll. I'm gonna make mine to the actual waistline. So I'm gonna work mine as well all the way up to the arm plate. So this sweater has a bit of a drop sleeve on it because, well, it's 80s, early 90s. And they just love those drop sleeves. So we're gonna get rid of that drop sleeve, not my favorite. Okay, let's see. We are getting more fitted, which is great. We're just gonna work our way up into this armhole a little bit more. Okay. Let's pull our sleeve out. Now I'm gonna work my way down the sleeve just a little bit because I am gonna cut this and make this short sleeves, but I know I need to take in a few inches here. So I'm gonna go ahead and pin this because that way when I try it on, I know exactly how tight it's gonna be before I end up cutting anything off. Okay, let's put one more pin down here, even though we are at the waist right here. There we go. So you can really see that this side is looking more fitted on the body versus the side that we haven't pinned yet. Now you want to make sure you pin the other side of your sweater. Do it in the exact same way, but it's not a bad idea to grab a ruler and make sure you're actually pinning in the same amount on the other side. So go ahead and pin up the other side and then we'll move on. Now that we have the sweater all pinned up, we know exactly what size it's going to be. But next, we need to establish our waistline. We need to know where we're gonna sew the skirt of our dress. So I'm going to be using my chalk and I'm going to follow the waistline on the dress form so I can feel the twill tape there for the waist. So I'm just gonna work my way all the way around the dress form, including the back. So we are just gonna turn this and keep feeling the waistline. There we go. Now we've established our waistline and we know where we're going to be sewing our skirt fabric. Next, we're gonna head over to the cutting table, mark where all of our pins are, cut off all the extra fabric and serge our seams so that way they're nice and secure and we know our knit isn't going to be unraveling or going anywhere. But if you do not have a serger, no worries. You can use a little zigzag stitch and then do an overcast stitch on the edge, or you could do a straight stitch and overcast or zigzag or overlock the edge of your sweater. Now, overlock, you might be thinking, isn't that a serger too? Well, a lot of sewing machines nowadays also have a stitch called the overlock stitch, which mimics the stitch of a serger. So definitely check your sewing machine and see if you have that stitch if you don't have a serger. So now grab your chalk and we are gonna chalk exactly where the pins are, front and back of the pin, so that way we can remove the pins and do some sewing. So I'm going to be chalking exactly where the pin is, all the way down the side of this shirt. So you're basically gonna end up with a bunch of little lines, and we can go back later and connect them. You also want to flip over the shirt and do the other side so you can still see where the little pin spots are on this side. Now I like to mark both sides just so I know exactly where the pin was in case it's uneven at all. We'll figure that out as we create the dress. But technically you could just chalk one side. Okay, now that I have it all chalked up, I can go ahead and remove my pins. Okay, so we can see the outline of our new bodice on the shirt. So that is going to be our sewing line. Next, I'm gonna grab my ruler and I'm gonna add some seam allowance to the hem. So that way I know exactly where I need to cut, so that way we can start serging. So I'm going to add 1 inch for a seam allowance just to give myself a little bit extra since this is an upcycle project. And I also evened it out. So now we can take our scissors and cut through both layers. Woo, there we go. So now we have the bodice for our dress. Now that we have the bodice shorter, we need to take in the sides. So we have all those chalk lines on the bodice and we are going to follow those chalk lines with the blade on our serger. So that way we can have nice finished seams and it's gonna cut it all off at the same time. So this is wonderful. But if you don't have a serger, I'm gonna show you what to do right now. So if you don't have a serger, what you wanna do is measure out your seam allowance, 1/2 inch or 3/8 or 5/8, whatever you want your seam allowance to be. Put a new mark here. And then that's gonna be your cutting line. And then you can go ahead and cut off all the extra sweater. And then you can go ahead and sew up your edges. You could use an overcast, you could use a straight stitch and a zigzag, you could use an overlock stitch. You have so many options for stitches for finishing this knit edge. So go ahead and use your favorite method. but I'm going to be using the serger, so let's head over to the serger and I'm gonna show you exactly how to serge these sides off. Now we're going to be following this chalk line that we have here for our sewing line, and we're gonna be cutting off everything else. Since I'm cutting the sleeve short, I'm just gonna blend off here on the sleeve. Now we're gonna serge off the other side. Now that we serged off all that fabric on the sides, let's take a look at it. So you can see where I serged the edges together here, and the sweater is so much smaller. And this clean edge on the serger is looking great, and it's gonna hold all the knitwear together so that way it doesn't unravel. So when I serged right where my chalk lines were, right up into the arm. Because I'm going to be cutting it off short sleeve right about here, I just blended off on the sleeve because we're gonna chop that off later. Our hem is still raw, so we're just gonna serge the edge of this single layer all the way around in a circle. So we are just going to serge the raw edge of the sweater. Now that we have the sweater all taken in, we're gonna turn it right sides out and chop off those sleeves where we want them. So we are just going to flip it right side out. This is exciting. So we're really gonna be able to see how much we took this in. It's already looking like a new project, a new updated sweater. So cute. I feel like I might even wear it just like that. But I would like to cut it off right below the applique here. So I'm gonna go ahead and measure an inch down, cut it off, and then we'll serge the finished edge and flip it up and hem it. So I'm gonna place my ruler an inch over from the applique, so I don't want it to get in the way when I'm serging. And then we're just gonna draw our chalk line here. And then we're going to cut. We're just gonna cut the sleeve right off. There we go, super easy. Now we're gonna do the exact same thing to the other side. The appliques should be in the exact same spot. They look like they are. We can always measure the top of the sleeve and see how far we went over if you're unsure. So we are gonna measure an inch over, draw our chalk line, and cut. There we go. We have such a major transformation happening here. This is a sweater that has been downsized to be a bodice for a dress. I know it looks really small right now, but it's super stretchy. And it's also gonna stretch out a bit in the waist when we add our satin fabric to it. So let's go over how we're gonna finish the opening of the sleeve. So we have a raw edge right here, so you wanna be really careful not to pull it because this knit will unweave and unravel. So we're going to serge the edge of it in a circle, and then we'll go over to the sewing machine and we will flip it under and sew it down. Let's head over to the serger and serge that sleeve opening. Just gonna serge all the way around in this circle. Careful not to pull your knit while you're serging. Also make sure your knit's not stretching out while you're serging. If it is, you need to change your differential feed. One done, one to go. There we go, we're all done. I've folded up my hem a ½ inch and I've set my machine to a broken zigzag stitch. We're also gonna make sure we back stitch and then just work our way all the way around the sleeve. I've also taken off the bed of my machine so I could fit my sleeve right onto the machine bed. While you're doing this, you might want to make your stitch length a little bit longer. And make sure you're not pulling the knit while you're sewing it. If you have any applique on your shirt, make sure you're not going to run into it with your hem stitch. When you get back to where you started, overlap your stitches just a little bit, back stitch, and cut. Now that we have everything cut, serged, and hemmed up, we are ready to attach a skirt to this bodice. And that way we'll have a dress. So when you're attaching a skirt to a sweater to make it into a dress, you could do a few different things. You could cut a circle skirt that's bigger than your waist, so that way it stretches so you can get it on. You could pleat a piece of fabric, you could gather a piece of fabric. So there's a few different ways you can attach that fabric to the sweater to get your look for the bottom to make it into a dress. So keep in mind that all of these different techniques are going to give you different looks. So the circle skirt that I'm going to be doing is going to be fitted at the top and flare out at the bottom. So if you don't have a circle skirt pattern, go ahead and download one off my website at sewinganastasia.com under digital downloads. So how are you going to choose how much fabric to sew to the waist of the sweater? So since we're sewing a woven to a knit fabric, this gets a little tricky. So the easiest way to do this is stretch your sweater big enough so that way you can fit it on, because there's no zipper in this. And then measure it, and that's the waist measurement that you're going to be using to cut out your circle skirt or use for gathering up your fabric or creating a pleated length of fabric. So I'm gonna go ahead, stretch this, measure it, and then cut out the waist measurement in the circle skirt for this measurement, not my actual waist measurement. We have got our circle skirt cut out. So a circle skirt is literally a giant circle with the waist circumference cut out of the center. So the circle skirt at the center, the waist is the circumference of your waist. But since we're making a sweater dress, this is way bigger than my waist, so that way we can end up gathering it up. Mine is 34 inches, so I've got a little gather in my circle skirt. And then from the waist to the bottom is the length of your circle skirt. So you can always make your circle skirt longer or shorter, so just measure from your waist down if you have a dress with a waistline. If you'd like more info on how to create a circle skirt or sew a circle skirt, make sure you check out my other videos on it. I'll have some links down below for you. Or you could download the pattern from my website. Just make sure you're picking the size that is your sweater stretched out at the waist. Make sure it's not your actual waist size. Next, we need to finish the edges on the circle skirt. So I'm going to serge the waist and I'm going to serge the hem, and then we can attach it to our bodice. And if you don't have a serger, don't forget you can use the overlock stitch, the zigzag stitch, or the overcast stitch on your regular sewing machine. So we have all of our edges nice and serged, and now we are ready to sew this to the sweater. You might be asking yourself, what is she going to do next? She has a woven skirt and a stretchy sweater shirt. How is this gonna work? Isn't it gonna stretch out of place? Well, it's not going to, so just follow along and I'm gonna show you step by step exactly what to do. Okay, now what I'm gonna do is take my skirt and place the right side of the skirt to the right side of the sweater. So we are going to fit the skirt over the sweater. So you'll notice that the skirt is bigger, but when I pull it, it lines up. So you can go ahead and pull this and pin it, or just stretch it while you sew it, and we're gonna make sure that we use a zigzag stitch while we're doing this. The seam allowance on this is about 1/2 of an inch, so I'm going to be doing my zigzag stitch about 1/2 of an inch away from the edge. So let's go over to the sewing machine and attach the skirt to the bodice. I have my sewing machine set to a zigzag stitch, and we're gonna work our way all the way around, stretching our sweater to make sure it fits our circle skirt. When you get to the end, overlap your stitches, back stitch, and cut. So we have the skirt sewn to the sweater. You can see how it gathered it up a bit because the sweater's stretchy and the pink fabric's not. So let's turn it right side out and take a look at this. This is so cute. And this looks so nice and evenly gathered because we stretched it. But we have another step left for the waist. I would like to reinforce it and make sure it's nice and tight and doesn't stretch out of place because it is a knit sewn to woven. So we're going to take this 5/8 inch piece of elastic here, and we are going to stretch it and sew it into the waistline so that way the waistline stays nice and secure. So we're sewing the elastic in, we're gonna sew it in our seam allowance here. We're gonna stretch it while we're sewing it so that way it cinches it up and makes it nice and tight tight for our waist. So you wanna cut your elastic 2 inches smaller than your waist, or put the elastic around your waist, pull it till it feels tight enough, and then you know exactly how much elastic you need to stretch out. When we're sewing, we're gonna sew right in the middle of this elastic here. And we're going to be performing a zigzag stitch when we do this. So let's head over to the sewing machine and sew in this elastic. Don't forget to backstitch even though you're zigzagging. Make sure you're pulling your elastic while you're sewing, so hold the back of your fabric, give it a pull. Don't forget to make sure you're stretching your elastic, and if you need to, stretch the bottom layer a bit too. When you get to the end, you want to overlap your elastic and make sure you're back stitching. Back stitch and cut. Now that we have the elastic in the waist, it is cinched up our waist back to where we need it, back to normal, and it allows our dress to stretch so we can get in and out of it. And now we just have one step left. We are going to be hemming the very bottom of our dress. So I'm just gonna be turning under the edge about 3/8 of an inch and stitching it down. So this is called a single folded hem. And because this is a circle skirt, you're not gonna be able to do a really big fold for your hem because it is a circle. So make sure you're doing a nice narrow hem for your circle so it lays nice and flat. Don't forget to backstitch, and let's work our way all the way around the hem. When you get to the end, overlap your stitches, back stitch, and cut. Here it is, finished upcycle. Remember that giant sweater? Well, we tailored it up, cut off the sleeves, and added this super cute satin pink circle skirt to the bottom. So we got rid of those shoulder pads. We tailored up the side. It fits the body of this dress form beautifully. We cut the sleeves, made them shorter, finished our edges really nice, zigzagged them down, and then we gathered up this circle skirt for the waist. These beautiful, beautiful gathers in the satin, the way it's catching the light are awesome. I love the way the sweater just smoothly flows into the skirt. There's no weird bunching on the sweater. All the gathering is coming out of the skirt, and that is just how we want it. We want a fitted sweater and all the flare to be in the skirt here. And look how stretchy it is still. So we're not gonna have any problem getting into this dress, and it's still gonna maintain all the structure and shape that we need it to. And it looks so cute on. I just love this transformation. I love how we went from that big ugly sweater. Maybe I would have worn it with some jeans, but I don't think so. And so we have made it into this cute upcycle dress. All we had to do was add a skirt to it, and then voila, we've got a sweater dress. So today we took a really big sweater, we tailored it up, we changed the sleeves, we changed the waistline, we added a skirt to it, we put some elastic in it, and finished all those edges. And now we have a brand new dress upcycled out of a sweater. And it wasn't even that hard, was it? So next time you're at the thrift store or the store and you see a sweater and you're like, that's cute, but I don't like that as a sweater, think about upcycling it into a dress. Thanks so much for watching Sewing Anastasia today. I hope you had fun turning a sweater into a super cute dress. If you have any questions about this entire process, make sure you leave it down below and I will get back with you as soon as I can. And I would love to see your upcycles, so make sure you tag me at Sewing Anastasia and hashtag Sewing Anastasia so that way I can check them out and repost them and share the upcycling love with everyone else. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell because I put out sewing videos every single week, multiple times a week. So much sewing over here. And if you're already a subscriber, thank you so much for subscribing. And And don't forget to follow me on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter and TikTok because I'm posting sewing content every single day, all the time. So much sewing content. I would love to stay connected and creative with you. And don't forget, I also teach sewing classes, so make sure you check those out at sewinganastasia.com under sewing classes. Thanks so much for watching. Bye.